everyone, welcome to my channel. Today's video I thought I'd just show you how to make this quick snowy background. I did use a Lavinia stamp, but the point of the video is the background itself. So it's kind of for creating a snowy scene that could either be full of things or just a little bit. And for this one, I used this Lavinia rabbit and I made him a little scarf and a little star, but the point is the snowy background. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get started on this. And so what I'm using here is Bristol Smooth cardstock. And I know that I'm going to be working on a landscape picture for demo purposes, that you can do it in any direction you want. And I'm going to be using Tim Holtz Ranger Distress Oxide in Hickory Smoke. And I'm going to be using my big blender brush. I like this brush just because it gets the job done quick. So I'm going to get ink on it, and then I'm just going to ink tap off a little bit. And then I'm going to just start rubbing my ink in. And when you're doing it, it's hard to even tell there's a difference until you look at it next to another white piece of paper. But you're going to go fairly lightly. It's better to do multiple light coats than try to do a heavy coat, because you want this to fade towards the top. So you don't want the top white, but you don't want it dark gray either. You just want it to look like it's in the distance, because that's what it is. We're looking at a landscape scene that goes off into the distance. So that's the simple blending right there. So see, next to a white piece of paper you can see the color, but it's very hard to see it when you're just looking straight at it. So compare if you need to. Another good color that works good for this is Pumice Stone. But for this one I'm using gray because I'm trying to make pretty much a monochromatic scene. So I'm going to use my Lavinia Rabbit Max. I don't have a lot of animal stamps, and these are silhouette stamps, but if you do it in a light enough color, you can draw in the details yourself. So I'm going to stamp Max out with the Morning Mist from Versavine Claire, because I don't want him to be a black rabbit. You could make him any color you want to. This is, again, more just to illustrate the snowy effect. And so I want to first trim my paper to the size I want it so that I can get my placement proper. Because I do cut my Bristol Smooth a little bit longer and wider than normal, because I basically cut it into fourths. So when you cut it into fourths, it's bigger than an 8.5 by 11 sheet. So I'm just cutting a little bit off the bottom, a little bit off the side, and now I have the size I need. And what I'm doing is kind of eyeball measuring about 2/3 of the way in is where he's going to sit. I'm just going to press him down. And you want to get a good amount of ink on there. In this case, I didn't get a good amount of ink, so I'm going to have to do some makeup work on the back end, and you guys have seen me do that before. But there's the little guy here, and pretty simple. And I'm just going to draw a couple little details. Again, you could make a scarf if you feel creative. If you have already, like Tim Holtz has some little accessories like that, you can use an accessory. But I'm going to take my black Stabilo all pen, and I'm going to give him a little bit of details. I'm going to give him a little bit of an eye, a little black on his nose, a couple little whiskers, and I really need to sharpen my pencil here. A little bit of detail in his hair, just to make him stand out a little bit more. I think my other one came out better, but because I made his eye too round, he needs to have more of a almond-shaped eye, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Just going to add those tiny bits of detail. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make it snow. So I'm going to move all my stuff out of the way. I'm going to get my splat box. And I'm just going to lay this down inside the box so I don't get white ink everywhere. And I'm going to grab my same stamping platform and my Dr. Philip Martin's bleed proof white. And I'm just going to take my little scoopy tool. It's sort of an all-purpose little spade tool. Put a little bit of that white ink on there, and off camera there, I'm spraying it with water because I don't want to get my scene wet. I don't want water droplets on it. So I just put a couple of little squirts of water, and I'm going to grab my fan brush, and I'm going to make it start snowing here. Just kind of stir it up, and I just tap it. And I want a lot of snow, and I want snow on him, right? Because if it's snowing, the snow is not avoiding anyone, it's getting us all. But I do quite a lot. What it does is it just kind of, against that gray, it just brings that kind of, I don't know, you ever notice how when it's snowing and there's just this loud quiet, if I can even describe it that way. There's just this sound of lack of sound. Yeah, I'll stop with that anyways. I think you know what I'm talking about. It's just a quiet little snowfall. So I do want to dry that off a little before I go on to the next step, because I still need to ground him, right? And you don't even have to do that. You don't even have to put anything in here if you don't want to. Or you could put white trees or green trees covered in snow, or a Santa in his sleigh, or a deer, whatever you have. So a die cut, whatever. Let me go ahead and just get this dry. It doesn't take very long to dry, but I'm going to be doing some more inking, so I really need to not smear my snow. If I did, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I mean, this is a super, super easy technique. And I'm glad you don't have to hear my dryer. I'm just checking it towards the bottom. Yep, it's dry. Good deal. So I'm going to take my black pencil and I'm just going to try and add in a little bit more detail here. I'm trying to make his eye right, but my pencil just isn't sharp enough. So one good thing about pencil, it erases. But if you can see, and you have to look closely, you can see that my bunny's a little transparent here, but you'll see more when I go and try and ground him. So I'm going to take one of my hill masks, and you can use torn paper or any other mask you have. I just like these masks. I want to say Colorful Life makes them. Probably everybody makes them. But these are my Lavinia. And I'm going to grab my Morning Mist ink again, because again I'm keeping this monochromatic. And I'm going to take one of these little makeup brushes. I'm going to turn this so it's convenient for me to work on it. Look where his feet are. And then I'm going to go from the bottom and brush upward. And we'll talk about that at the end of the video, the difference between whether you're going to brush upward or downward. And it's completely a matter of preference. But in this case, I'm brushing upward, so that it looks like, you know, there's something off into the distance, so it gives it a bit more grounding, not quite as much desolate. Looks like he's standing in the snow, but now you can see where he's pretty transparent. So I am just going to get one of my little makeup brushes, and these are makeup brushes that I buy on Amazon, and I'm going to use the same ink, and I'm going to kind of deepen down those areas where my ink didn't quite soak in. So it's just one of these little brushes. It has a brush on the end, and it's got a foam pad on the other end. And I'm just going to take and fill in those areas. Darken it down a bit. Add some little shadow, just to give some more dimension to my rabbit. Get a little bit more color in his foots. And a little bit around his tail, because we really don't want a see-through rabbit. And therein is also the advantage of going from top down. is that you don't, if your stamping is a little transparent, you really can't tell. I'm just going to kind of just deepen down around the contours of the rabbit's body. And you can see I'm real frustrated with that eye. It's just wrong. So I've got this little eraser and it erases it just fine. So I'm going to erase that pencil mark and try and put a better one in. It does leave a little bit of a dark spot, and that's okay. But my pencil's kind of dull, so I'm going to grab my charcoal pencil here and try and draw that eye in a more almond shape. Yeah, I like that better. He's going to need a little bit more detail on his nose too. I'm just going to put a little white spot in the eye as kind of a gleam to give it some dimension. And then I like to take my sable colored pencil when I'm working with a gray and add in some, or sand, sable, whatever, this kind of yellow, not like yellow, but kind of a golden yellow, and just add in a little bit of color. Not enough to say what color the rabbit is. Just enough to kind of, I don't know, maybe highlight. That, first of all, yellow and gray are amazing together. So I'm just kind of giving him some hair, I guess. And these are details that have nothing to do with the method that I'm trying to show here, but I just can't show you the snow with nothing else. It just doesn't seem right. He fix his nose a little and try and fix his whiskers. This pencil, I need to sharpen it, like I said. I keep giving him a smudge on his face instead of little whiskers. So I'll grab my charcoal pencil again. And just a tiny bit of whisker, not much at all. And that's just how easy that is. He's standing there looking off into the distance in the snow, and he's all alone. Now this one, I made this little scarf for him out of some scrap paper, and I'll just show you kind of how I did that. It's not rocket science, but it does, take a little bit of patience because you're cutting something really, really small. What I've got here is a piece of watercolor paper, I think. Maybe I've got more of the Bristol Smooth. And I'm just going to cut, to me, what looks like a collar shape. Because basically that's all a scarf is a collar with a tail. So I'm just going to trim around, and I want to make them smooth edges. I don't want them pointy, because a knitted scarf would never be pointy. And as I'm doing that, I'm kind of looking at the little rabbit, looking to see around the size of his neck. And I'll just lay that on there and check it for fit. And that looks comfortable. He almost looks like Eevee. And you'll know who Eevee is if you watch Pokemon or play Pokemon Go. And then for the tail of the scarf, I'm just going to make some little squiggly cuts. Cut it straight across. Make squiggly cuts down the other side. And yeah, I mean, we could leave the scarf white if we wanted to. And I'm just going to grab it with my tweezers. I'm going to lay it on there and check it. And then trim off the top where it's kind of at an angle. Lay it down. I'm going to have it come up a little bit. And the collar was just a little bit too big for me. So I'm just going to trim it down. Now, a scene like this is something that a pop of color will just go a really long way. So we've got the white right now, but I think I'm going to add some color to that bad boy. Checking how that scarf's going to lay, and I'm happy with that. So I'm going to move it aside. I'm going to lay it down on my little mat so it doesn't move on me. And I'm going to grab a Versfine Clair in the tulip color, because I think I want my pop of color to be red here for more of a Christmassy scene. But it doesn't have to be Christmas. It can be winter, it can be birthday, it can be, well, as you saw, the one that I made, I think I said Missing You or something like that, which is what made me think of this when I was doing this, is that little rabbit just looks so lonely, and it would be such a great card, you know, to express to somebody how much you miss them. So let's see how that red scarf's gonna look on here. And I'm not gonna glue it on today because maybe I'll change my mind. But I think the red is gonna make an amazing pop of color. Now, if you did your snow scene in more of a light blue, that would even look cooler. But see how that just pops right there? And that's pretty much how you get that snowy scene. So I did want to talk about the difference here between whether you swipe up or swipe down. See, on this one I swipe down, and so it brings him center stage, right? This would be swiping down. It brings him center stage with not a lot of focus on anything more. So swiping up makes it look like there's something dark in the distance, like there's a downhill kind of, where here it just, you know, makes him in the middle of nothing, which is fine. I like it that way. So you can do either way you like. Thanks a bunch for watching. I appreciate you. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to be notified. Have a good one.